Hello, and welcome back to the Gamer Chats podcast. It is just myself and Lotus today.
I wouldn't say podcast this time, Raptor. So allow me to explain a few things while we have a moment before we get into the meat of all this. So we're going to be doing a variety of content at this point, not just the podcast discussions. And today we bring you guys a review on a certain show that everyone has been a little, what would you say, Raptor? What kind of reception have you seen this show getting?
Well, you either hate it or you fucking despise it.
That sounds about right. So, if you haven't figured from that little comment, we're going to be talking about the Velma show, the allegedly worst Scooby Doo adaptation. Now, I'm curious because you just finished it, right, Raptor?
Yeah.
Okay, so I never got to find out how you felt about it. So tell me in the audience, what did you think of Velma?
Okay, so I personally didn't really grow up that much with Scooby Doo, but to say the least, it was unwiped ass.
You think it was shit?
Yeah.
Okay. So, to really play off this, I actually didn't hate it. I actually honestly enjoyed it.
You enjoyed it.
Yes, I did. Take that for what you will, but I honestly did not have a problem with the show. Yes, it has its moments where it's like, what? But it wasn't that bad,
I mean,
honestly.
I will admit there were a few points that had me giggle a little bit, but that's it.
See, that's entirely fair. I understand that it's not everyone's cup of tea. You're basically taking these beloved Scooby Doo characters and putting them into like an adult kind of thing. And of course, another big thing I would have to say is that there's obviously going to be like the backlash of these are teenagers and they're in these kind of like sexualized. I can't say kind of. There's obviously these moments that where it's very like the sex jokes and all that kind of stuff. It can come off a little wrong to certain audiences, obviously, and I can understand that. But in all honesty, it kind of feels like teenagers to me, like just your run of the mill average teenagers, and I say average in quotes, obviously.
Well, I mean, to me, they come off more as like middle school teenagers than they do high school teenagers.
Well, that's the thing. You're gonna have a large variety of high schoolers, Raptor. I've known a fair amount of high schoolers like them in my life. That's the thing. You gotta remember, Raptor, there's like all sorts of different types of people, and you're gonna come across a lot of different things. And personally, I found them. Obviously they had their moments where they were offensive, and just moments where didn't really feel that those jokes were needed. I obviously can't think of these kind of things because they usually go over my head. And that's probably another reason why it didn't bother me as much. Is
Well,
because this kind of stuff does go over my head.
well, more than half the show is pretty much offensive jokes.
That's what kind of gets me. Isn't that, for the most part, a lot of adult animation where it's offensive jokes and making fun of people, society, and all that kind of stuff? Isn't that just like the bread and butter of what adult animation is at this point?
Well, I mean, yeah, but the way I see it, it's kind of a matter if you can do it right and how much you do it. Velma, I don't know. They just don't really do it right in that show, and they do it a bit too much.
I will give you that, and again, like, this stuff does go over my head, so I won't really notice these kind of things. I mean, if you look at me with, like, Hell of a Boss, and I know Hell of a Boss is a whole different thing of adult animation, it's much better than Velma, I will say that hands down, there's no contest. Hell of a Boss for the win.
100 times better. No, 1,000 times better.
Okay, Raptor, settle down. But anyway, I will say, obviously, like, Hell of a Boss is a lot different than a lot of adult animation that you will find, because from what I've seen, like, comparing it to, like, mainstream adult animation, you get a lot more. You obviously get your sex jokes, but they do have to keep a, what's the word I'm looking for? A rein on it, so they don't go overboard. A Hell of a Boss kind of has that free reign to do whatever they want. I mean, we saw X's and O's, Raptor. We know what they
Yeah.
were. Gosh, the scene with all the dicks in the wall was just fucking. I don't even know what to think of that. It's just.
Jesus
Oh, I'm just like,
Christ.
okay.
Yeah, I'm not even sure what to think after seeing that shit.
But you get the point. Like, adult animation does have a lot of what's the word I'm looking for? A lot of wiggle room, and it also depends on where they're able to stream it or show it off at. Obviously, YouTube gives somewhat more freedom, and I say that in quotes because it's still constrictive to a lot of other content creators. But there are people who do manage to like kind of nip that in the butt, almost in a sense. Like, you know what I mean? Like they manage to squeak by the restrictions just because of how popular it might be.
Yeah, but for people that are not those people, it's a baby website for little babies.
It unfortunately is. I do have to agree with that. But when it comes to things like Velma and other stuff, like they kind of have to take their jokes where they can. I can kind of give it that. And again, like I'm sorry, but a lot of the offensive jokes went over my head because I don't know what it is. That stuff's never registered with me. It doesn't now, and it didn't when I was younger or anything like that. So for those who found it very offensive, I do apologize. But that stuff went over my head. But the thing that also kind of gets me, like obviously I watched it with my zucchini Reaver or Soulblade, and he found it just as enjoyable as I did.
Really?
Yes, he did. I can share, at least from our perspectives, what we thought of the characters as a whole, and I hope I can remember his well enough, but I know I know he did have a fondness for Fred. He loved the himbo.
Oh my god, Fred.
I'm not gonna lie, at the start, Fred was a little insufferable because I'm not a huge fan of those kind of like preppy, idiot, himbo kind of characters. But I did like the turnaround. It was kind of funny watching him go from like this man child, essentially, to this, I wouldn't even say pseudo feminist because like I don't know, it was like he was trying, but then he was also trying too hard. But I'm just like, it feels genuine, but at the same time, I don't know. And the whole thing with him and Velma, I'm just like, this is a little weird to see, but it's also interesting and funny. There were a few times where I did, the Fred's crush on Velma did make me laugh. I think my favorite scene was when Velma was disguised as a man and I don't know if she accidentally slapped Fred or whatever the case was. It seemed like an accident at the time. But when Velma and Daphne are together and they're about to kiss, I believe, you have to figure me, it's been a hot minute. And Fred comes out and he's like, no, that's Velma. I would know her hand anywhere from all the fantasies I've had. I'm like, oh lord.
Yeah.
That kind of shit, like, that's funny to me. Like, it's cringy, don't get me wrong. It absolutely is. However, and I'm gonna say this right now, no, I'm sorry to compare these two because these are two very different types of animation because one is made for adults and one is made for kids. But in all honesty, I'd much rather watch Velma's cringe than Miraculous Ladybug. Just like, I know it's bad because obviously you have Daphne who's just, I don't know, like, Daphne was okay. I didn't hate her, but I didn't like her either. She was just okay. I guess that's the best way to put it. What did you think of Daphne?
She was just your stereotypical popular high school girl.
Okay. And I mean, it's not just stereotypical because there are girls like that. Because my cousins have known some girls like that. And I'm just like, yeah, I have to. But they're stereotypes for a reason because you do tend to see them quite a lot.
Yeah.
Let's see. What about Norville Shaggy? What'd you think of him?
I mean, I think he was alright. I don't know. He was an alright character.
He had his moments for me, but I think what I didn't like was the whole simp energy. And I hate using that word. I really do, but it's probably the best way to describe him as well, unfortunately. Okay, so let's get to Velma. So I know this to a lot of people is probably a very radical difference of Velma because Velma's always like the smart one. Yeah, she has her moments of sass, but overall she's just bookworm, nerd, figuring out all the mysteries and whatnot. And I will be honest in this regard, Velma was a bit of a hit or miss in some of the episodes. Obviously, she had her moments where she was just downright awful, but then she had her moments where she was okay. I can't say good, but okay.
Yeah, not really, definitely not good, but an okay character at some points.
Yes, I can greatly agree with that. I do like the whole plot with her basically trying to find her mother. I know a lot of people said it wasn't really the right way to write a mystery and things like that. And I'm not a mystery writer, so I can't really vouch for this or things like that. But I was genuinely intrigued from the moment I watched the first episode what the hell was going to happen. I don't know if it was you too, Raptor, but I know I myself was genuinely interested to find out what the fuck was going on.
Yeah, a little bit. I'm not gonna lie.
Okay, so yeah, you and I are in the same boat there then. Yeah, no, like it was genuinely interesting, and obviously you had your twists and turns throughout it, and I do appreciate that along the way she does mend the bridge a little bit with her father. Obviously, it's not perfect because there's still issues at the end, and I do appreciate that. And I think what I appreciate the most from this, and it comes from me as a writer of someone, usually in like the not teen genre, but like with teen characters, they felt like the teenagers I would have seen in my high school when I was growing up, to some degree. Obviously, it's a little more exaggerated because it is adult animation, it is a cartoon, and things like that. So you're going to get those exaggerated characteristics, unfortunately. However, the overall feel of it did kind of remind me a little bit of high school. Not to say it was obviously the same, but like there were those moments.
Yeah.
But overall, they felt like teenagers in terms of they aren't fully thinking clearly, they're just acting on impulse and things like that. Obviously, not all teenagers do that, and you do have your smart teenagers that will think twice, move once. But then you have the teenagers like you have in Velma. And those are the interesting ones. That's where you get the drama and everything. Is it good drama? Never. There's so many problems I had just watching some of it. Was obviously the whole Velma being completely self-absorbed. It worked for her character, but it didn't mean I liked it. It was a big thing because it really bothered me that she wasn't there for Daphne when Daphne needed her. But then she expected Daphne to just be there regardless.
Yeah, she was pretty much a selfish hypocrite at that point.
And it's brought up multiple times to where it's like basically shoving it in her face. And I do understand where that can be a little bit of a there's a word for it. I can't think of the word, unfortunately. But it can be a little much for some people to just have things blatantly shoved in their faces and explained like that. But unfortunately, you do need that with some people. And Velma, even with having it shoved in her face multiple times and reminded just how horrible she is and how much of a hypocrite she was, she still didn't get it until the very end.
Yeah.
Which, I don't know. It works, but then at the same time, she still doesn't feel like she changed all that much. Like,
Yeah,
obviously,
I don't think
she
she
changed
did.
enough. No, I don't think so. I feel like we should also talk a little bit about Fred here. With Daphne, there's not too much to say.
But
Like,
Fred
literally,
is a whole other story.
Fred was a whole nother thing. So Fred is how do you say it? He's kind of like the everyman of the group. He can literally be anything you need to be,
At the
and
same
usually that's how
time,
he is.
yeah, at the same time, a complete man-child.
At least in this iteration, he's not always depicted as a man-child, but he's definitely himbo energy in other iterations. But this one's definitely the man-child, and I don't know. I didn't like it at first. I did like the slight turnaround where he starts kind of, I wouldn't even say maturing. Maturing feels too nice. It really does.
Yeah, slight
It
transformation.
It's just a slight adjustment. Although I did like the scene where Fred is reading like a feminist book, and his father comes up, throws it in the trash, and hands him a shotgun and a shot of shot of fucking whiskey or something. That was funny as hell. Oh my gosh, I love that scene. His father's like, none of that. That was great. Oh gosh, like that. I'll give it that. Oh gosh. But overall, I don't think I really cared for him at all. Same with Norville. I feel like they could have done a little bit more with Norville or Shaggy. Call him
Yeah.
whatever you wish. It's the same thing, regardless.
Yeah, and for those that say that it was a random ass name to give him, it was
No, his name was always Norville.
yeah, his name was always Nerval. Shaggy is just a nickname that he always went by. His real name is actually Nerval.
Norville.
Norville.
Norville. There you go.
Close
Yeah.
enough.
I know. Now, I will say this right off the bat. If I had to go back and watch it, I probably wouldn't. I mean, it was good for a one-time through. It had its moments. And obviously, the story was interesting enough. The story is ultimately what made me keep watching it. And the characters were not entirely insufferable to the point where I couldn't watch it. It takes a fair amount for a character to be really bad for me to stop reading or watching something, which I think the last time was from a book. I'm not going to say what the book's name was, but essentially this character was extremely whiny and refused to accept accountability for his actions until the very end when he had to be a hero, essentially. And I'm just like, no, I can't do this. I can't do this anymore. I finished that book, but I didn't read the rest of the trilogy. I'm like, nope, I can't do this shit. It's cases like that where I will stop reading or stop watching. I can't handle that whininess, the brattiness. And we do see it with these characters, unfortunately, but it's not quite to the level that I hated it. Now, go ahead.
I was about to say, yeah, it's kind of the same with me, but yeah, admittedly, characters in the Velma show does not have that excessive brattiness that, as you said.
Or just see even the excessive, well, they do have the exaggerated features, obviously, when it comes to the personality, but it takes a lot for me personally. And it doesn't just have to be brattiness too. I know these characters are made to be unlikable, but they weren't too unlikable that I stopped watching, essentially. They're still bad. Don't get me wrong. They're still bad. But to me, they're sufferable. It's probably the best way to put it. And like I said, it did generally have some moments where it made me laugh. Again, with Fred's dad tossing the feminist book into the fireplace and handing him a fucking shotgun and a shot of whiskey. That shit was hilarious. I'm not gonna lie. that got a good laugh out of me. Got a good laugh out of Soul Blade too. And again, I know Fred was his favorite. He didn't really say much when it came to the others, but I know he loved the man-child himbo. That was by far his favorite. It's kind of funny. I'd have to say, of all the characters in that show, Raptor, I loved the lesbian cops, Daphne's parents, her mothers.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, like, I fucking loved them. I mean, maybe some people could say it's bad representation to have, like, the two lesbian characters be idiots. But at the same time, there is a charm to them. Like, I'm gay myself. I'm not lesbian, obviously. I have a whole spectrum of things. But I still found them enjoyable. Like, they were my favorite part. And the fact that they were genuinely good parents. They may not have been good cops, but they were good parents. And you don't even see that a lot, because then you have Velma with her shitty ass dad and the whole thing with her mother. And then Fred's parents are awful. And Norville, I don't know, like, I guess they were there for him, but at the same time, it's just like, I don't know. I feel like they were good parents. I don't know, it was hard to say. I don't know, what do you think, Raptor?
I mean, Norville, he seemed to have probably the best parents besides the lesbian cop.
Daphne's parents, yeah.
Yeah, Daphne's adopted parents.
I do agree there. And obviously, in terms of the whole story, I'd say it's okay. It's nothing groundbreaking, obviously. It's a mystery, and I'm not a mystery writer, so again. But to me, it felt like an intriguing enough mystery to hook me in. And you even said it hooked you in too, Raptor.
A little bit.
Okay.
I
But
did have
that's
to
all
take,
it
like, a little
takes,
bit.
though.
Yeah, but I did have to take a little bit of a hiatus from it because
No,
I
that's
just
totally
need to
fair.
stop.
I mean, yeah, that's fair. Again, it's not something I'd probably recommend in a full set. Well, pretty much watched it in a full setting, more or less. We obviously did take a break because bedtimes and all that shit, because, life. But no, I probably could have watched the whole thing in one sitting. It wasn't, like I said, it wasn't terrible at all to me. I actually enjoyed it for what it was worth.
I mean,
There's other stuff I've tried to watch in one sitting that just, I couldn't. It hurt too much.
yeah, I probably could have watched it in one sitting myself if I pushed myself to do it, but
That's fair.
yeah,
But I will say this: what would you rate it after watching it?
I'd give it a 4 out of 10.
See, mine's right around. I put about a 5 because again, like I enjoyed it, but it's not something I'm gonna go back and rewatch. And that's ultimately the thing when it comes to me and any kind of media. If it's something I can thoroughly enjoy and rewatch again, I can overlook certain aspects of it. But this didn't really have it for me. This is kind of like a one and done kind of thing. But again, it wasn't fully offensive to me. And again, like I said, these kind of jokes and all that shit go way over my head. And I'm sure you've probably noticed a few times, Raptor, just from interactions.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, I'm sorry, I truly am, but like these things just go over my head. I'm pretty sure Soul Blade picked up a few more of the jokes, probably a lot more of the jokes, let's be honest, than I did, but it is where it stands. Like, I personally didn't find it too offensive, but at the same time, it wasn't that great. It was just okay. I would say if you want any version of a sassy, sarcastic Velma, definitely go with the Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated. I feel like they do a very good sassy, snarky, cynical Velma. Really good there.
What's Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated?
So basically, I can't really say when it came out exactly or when it was released, but it's another adaptation of the Mystery Incorporated, and you see a lot of references in Velma with it being called Crystal Cove, and probably a few other things. Again, like, it's been a hot minute since I actually watched Velma, so I can't really recall all of them. But it basically tells a story of them, and it runs for 2 seasons, but it's the whole series, essentially, because they didn't need any longer to tell it. But it's them as the mystery gang. They live in this town but doesn't appreciate their mystery solving because not horror, but like haunted attractions essentially is the whole draw to it. And by getting rid of the monsters, it makes them kind of like the enemies of the town because they're getting rid of their tourism. And they find this locket that's part of this big mystery that spans the entire 2 seasons, essentially. And it definitely does the character development a lot better in terms of everyone in the whole group, as well as even Scooby, because I normally don't care about the dog. And I know a lot of people didn't like that in Velma, Scooby wasn't there. I didn't give 2 shits. I never really cared for Scooby. But I will say in Mystery Incorporated, Scooby's probably the best out of all the times that I've seen him.
Yeah.
And Velma, by far, is my favorite in that show, just because of how cynical and snarky her bite is, and it's great.
Yeah, and honestly, I think in general, I think it was probably for the best that they didn't add Scooby as a talking dog in Velma.
To be fair, Warner Brothers didn't even want Scooby-Doo in that show anyway, so that's the reason why he's not.
Yeah, but with the humor that the show has, it definitely wasn't for the best.
Yeah. I know there's some fans
It
speculating that they might
was for the
add it
best,
in
I mean.
later. It's alright, Raptor. But that's about all I have to say, really. I mean, characters were very mediocre, could have been a lot better. Humor was very hit or miss, and a lot of it went over my head, obviously.
Yeah, I have no reason to believe that they'll add Scooby as a dog
Oh,
later
they
on
won't.
if there is a later on, because yeah, Scooby's
It's already
already
been
there just as like a talking
an
brain
acronym.
project, an acronym.
Yeah. Yeah, an acronym. I know it's been greenlit for a second season so far.
So wait, there's actually going to be a second season.
Yes, so far.
I honestly didn't think there would be a second season with the amount of backlash it received.
So I'm gonna share this parting wisdom with you, Raptor. No attention is bad attention. Even if it's bad attention, as long as you're getting something out there, it's bringing attention to you, it's making you relevant. That's ultimately what it is. Even though a lot of people don't like Velma and are slamming it and everything, because it's getting the attention it is, it's bringing people in. And you're going to have people who keep watching it just to report on how bad it is.
Yeah, I suppose that is a fair point, and also maybe there is on the off chance, maybe a chance that they might, but honestly, I don't think so.
I think at this point, no one's going to give them that second chance. Let's be fair. I mean, let's be honest, after the first 2 episodes, people were ready to write it off, and they did. But then you still have people who watched it to report on how bad it was. If you want to really ruin something, you don't wage crusades or anything like that, Raptor. What you want to do is ignore it. Because the most power you can have is not giving it the attention.
Yeah, I suppose that is a fair point.
That's something you need to remember, Raptor.
I guess,
But yeah,
I guess that at the end of the day, yeah, clicks do matter.
clicks do matter. Doesn't matter what kind of clicks they are to these people. And that's why, again, Velma's getting. It was greenlit regardless before a lot of the backlash, if I'm not mistaken. But even with a lot of the backlash, it's still greenlit. They haven't reneged on that. But overall, it's worth a one time watch. But after that, I wouldn't say so.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was our thoughts on Velma. It's 5 for me, a 4 for Raptor. Watch it if you want to. You're not missing much. That's all I gotta say. You're not missing much. It just exists.
Yeah, just if you don't have the money, definitely don't get HBO Max just to watch the show.
Oh Lord, no. Please don't.
Yeah, that. In fact, just don't do that in general, I don't think.
Again, watch it if you want to, if you truly are curious. But again, you're not missing much.
Yeah.
You'd obviously be better off watching Mystery Incorporated if you want a good Scooby-Doo. But alright, Raptor, I think we're done. Thank you all for watching and joining us on this little Velma discussion and our little pseudo-review. We got room for this. But we all hope you have a wonderful morning, night, day, evening, whatever the case may be, and we will see you next time.